Should we be allowed to have access to elective abortions? I'm not talking about therapeutic abortions where a woman has been raped, where a woman has a non-viable pregnancy where the baby won't survive outside the womb at any point. I'm not talking about, oh, just wait a couple months. I'm talking about they won't survive. I'm not even talking about cases, well, obviously I'm not talking about cases where the woman's life is endangered by the pregnancy. I'm talking about elective abortions, where the woman decides she just doesn't want to have a baby for any number of reasons, sometimes good, sometimes bad. She doesn't want to have a baby. Should we be allowed to have access to those? Well, before we get too deep into it, the general tendency that I've seen people display is to either gravitate very, very sharply toward the pro-life or very, very sharply toward the pro-choice. And that was what they thought. That was it. You know, go team pro-life, go team pro-choice, you know, rah, rah, rah. That's it. That's all anybody thinks about. They pick their side and right away they're in debate mode. They're in my team, I'm going to win this. At least for as long as you're watching this video, try to keep a little bit more open mind than that. For some of you, that's a very condescending thing to ask. I apologize. For some of you, that's a very difficult thing to ask. I don't apologize. Try to keep an open mind. At least for as long as you watch the video, and then after you're done watching the video, you can hop back on over to Team Pro-Life or Team Pro-Choice and start, you know, being all aggressive for your team because you gotta win. I don't understand that, the whole gotta win thing, but that's just me. Do we deserve to have elective abortions? Roe v. Wade happened a good while back. V. Casey also happened a good while back. So all that, it's in the past. It's pretty solidly in the past. We've had time to observe just how abortion plays into our society. And there's plenty of abortions that happen, that's for certain. There's a lot of abortions that go on. People want them. People demand them. Maybe you don't demand them. Maybe you don't want them, but other people, they want them. I saw an ad just recently for a new abortion clinic that was opening up near where we live. I was watching TV with my daughters, and this ad pops up, and it's a bunch of women walking around a photo studio for reasons that commercials I don't even begin to understand. And they're talking about how confident and independent and free they are, and how they can make choices for themselves, and how they're, you know, for a while, I mean, I didn't even know what it was a commercial for. I mean, I started to figure it out pretty quickly, but it was like, I think every commercial these days is kind of like that. I'm a free, confident, independent woman, and I use this brand of deodorant. Okay, whatever. But they're going on and on about how confident and free and independent and, you know, successful they are and all this. And, you know, then they're like, you know, this abortion clinic, we do abortions or something like that. And it was a really interesting commercial. It was interesting because, well, because of many things, but one of the things that was really interesting about it was this tendency that people who are pro-choice have to really push abortion into the world. Hashtag shout your abortion. Let's really make this visible so that everybody can see it and everybody can see how perfectly normal and natural it is. And really, it reminds me of gay marriage. Not that I have anything against gay marriage. I was very much for gay marriage, but at the time that people were debating it and frothing in the mouth and getting all angry and outraged over it, the thing that I was really aware of was that people who were for gay marriage were really pushing it out into the air. This is normal. This is natural. We all need to accept this. And it felt like they were pushing it into the population of ideas so aggressively that it wasn't moving into people's minds in an organic way. people weren't given the time to sit around and think, well, you know, I know some gay people, they're not so bad, you know, they want to get married, that's okay. People weren't given the time to sit and think about that. It was being thrown in their faces. You have to accept this. You have to accept this now. We're tired of waiting around for you, so that's it. You have to accept it. And it just didn't seem like a very natural change. So as much as I supported gay marriage, at the time I remember looking at it and thinking, this doesn't feel like a good thing. On a gut level, this just doesn't sit easy with me. Because it's not happening on its own. It's being forced into place. And I don't think things should be forced into place. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm very wrong. You know, maybe the only way that change will ever happen is if somebody pushes it. And that's true in many cases. It's scarily true in well, the case of the Revolutionary War. So it's happened in our history, and it's definitely been a turn for the positive. And yeah, but generally speaking, I'm more of a, hey, let's just let this idea settle into people's minds on its own. Like, you know, let it just kind of sift in there without pushing it, and people will accept it more readily. And I really didn't get that feeling with gay marriage, and I'm really not getting that feeling with abortion. I see lots and lots of people who are very pro-choice, really, really shouting it from the rooftops and not particularly helping their cause in the way I think they would like to. Perhaps, and I could be very wrong, there are women who go on shoutyourabortion.com and they write out their story because they're trying to help other women who, you know, might not feel so comfortable with their decisions to know that they're not alone and that it's okay. I've read that a lot. You know, you're not alone. It's okay. These things do happen and you're going to be all right. And that's a very important message, and I understand why they're sending it out to other women. I've seen several women on YouTube who've posted videos about their abortions who are basically saying, hey, this is the process. If you're nervous, if you're scared, this is how it happens, just so you know, so it's not going to hit you all in the face, you know, just so that it's not something strange and foreign that you experience. You know, just trying to comfort other people, and that's a valuable thing. At the same time, I also see a lot of women who are really in your face about it, like, you know, I should have a right to abortion, my body, my choice, me, I, and the more they push that idea at us, the less people are going to want to deal with that idea. They're going to look at that loud, unpleasant lady who's, you know, shouting about her vagina, and they're going to think, well, that's an unattractive idea. And I don't mean unattractive as in maybe if she was prettier or maybe if she wore makeup. I mean the idea itself just stinks. And the person displaying it probably stinks too. It's not nice. That's no good. And when I see some of these commercials, that's kind of what I think. It's like, we're not appealing to the teenage girl who got pregnant and didn't know what to do and felt lost and, you know, desperately found her way to an abortion clinic and begged them for help, you know, at the age of like, you know, please be legal. So 18, you know, but we're talking about mid-20 somethings who, you know, I have my own interests that I'm pursuing and I just don't have time to be bothered with, you know, reproductive issues. Like, you know, one of those I think draws a little bit more sympathy and one of them doesn't draw much sympathy at all. Corporations like Planned Parenthood, which have sprung up in the wake of Roe v. Wade and become, you know, very profitable. Well, Planned Parenthood has definitely become profitable. They wouldn't be so big if they hadn't managed to rake in quite a bit of a profit. Well, they sell a product. They market a product to women. When I see these commercials, I see them marketing their product. It's not help when you need help. It's not, I'm in trouble and I don't know how to fix this otherwise. It's, here's our product. You should buy it. I have to ask myself, how many women would be getting abortions if abortions were not being marketed to them? How many women would get abortions if abortions weren't being sold as a product to them? You should buy our perfume. You should buy our jewelry. You should buy our abortions. It's advertised to us. We're told we should get abortions if we want abortions. If we have any kind of an oops moment or an unplanned pregnancy or anything goes wrong, just get an abortion and it will solve everything. That's a problem. It's a problem because I think there are many women out there who would not get abortions or would not have gotten abortions if it hadn't been marketed to them. I've read through shoutyourabortion.com. I go through the stories and I read them one by one sometimes. And, you read enough of those, you start to see patterns. There are a lot of women out there who, they were excited when they found out they were pregnant. They were happy when they found out they were pregnant. But they convinced themselves that getting an abortion was a good idea, and they got an abortion. They told themselves that getting an abortion was the responsible thing to do because they thought that's the responsible thing to do. It might not have been the responsible thing to do. If you make a mistake, shouldn't you take responsibility for your mistake instead of running away and hiding from it? Says a woman who had an abortion just last year, by the way. Although I don't think that was really a mistake. I was trying very hard to have a baby. I just didn't succeed. When somebody goes through something unsettling and unexpected, or maybe not even expected, but something of a crisis, and I don't know much about crises. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a person who occasionally sees people doing things, and I don't understand people very well, so I kind of have to watch them. When somebody goes through some sort of a crisis, I see a lot of people stopping and saying, what do I do now? And I think there are a lot of women who have an unplanned pregnancy who go through that kind of crisis process where it's like, oh crap, now what do I do? And so they ask, what do I do now? They ask their parents, they ask their boyfriend, they ask their bestie, they ask their minister, they ask the people at the Planned Parenthood. They ask, what do I do now? I don't know what to do. And in case you're thinking I'm implying that all women who have abortions don't know what to do, first of all, I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I found out what was happening with my pregnancy, because I knew what would happen if I didn't get the abortion. But even in cases not like mine, there are women who know exactly what they want to do. They either want to keep the baby or they don't want to keep the baby, and they know what they want. But there are many people who don't know what they want to do, and they're not always weak-minded, piddly, mousy people either. One of the best examples I can think of is my grandmother-in-law, when her husband died. The hospital called her in the middle of the night, and she started calling the rest of the family in the middle of the night to let us know, and she called my husband, and we were staying there at a hotel room at the time. Like, we'd come back to his home state to visit. So we got a call in the middle of the night at the hotel room, and he answered, and he's talking with her, and she had this moment, just this little tiny moment, because, and she was like, now what do I do? And my husband was a little bit shocked by it, because she is the strongest woman I know. I was very impressed by her when I met her. Like, I'm very impressed by that whole side of our family now. I guess it's our family. Anyway, all my in-laws are really cool people. I hit the jackpot when it comes to in-laws. I've got really awesome in-laws, but she's a very strong woman. She's very independent. She's very, she has a certain forward momentum to her She doesn't let things slow her down. She doesn't let things get in her way. She just keeps moving. And she knows what she wants, and she knows where she's going, and she knows what she's doing. And then all of a sudden on that night, she asked my husband, now what do I do? And, my husband talked with her for a little bit and told her that we were all coming over to go up to the hospital with her. And so honestly, I fell asleep. I was quite tired. I think, I was pregnant again. I get sleepy when I'm pregnant. But yeah, I mean, if it can happen to her, it can happen to anybody. Anybody can have one of those moments where something just hits them and they're really not terribly prepared for it, and they really weren't necessarily planning for it, and all of a sudden, now what do I do? And women in those situations, they go to somebody for advice. If you're completely flummoxed by a problem, usually you ask somebody for help and advice, and who they ask makes all the difference, I think, in their decision-making process. Say a woman finds out she's pregnant, doesn't know what to do, goes to her, I wouldn't say her minister, because I don't think many people go to their ministers with this kind of problem, but maybe they do, I don't know. Say she goes to her super pro-life aunt, who's always, been her secret confidant and always really helped her with, the problems that she didn't feel comfortable discussing with her mother. And she goes to her auntie and says, this is what happened. And her auntie says, oh, honey, we're going to help you with that. Don't you worry, Or maybe she goes to a friend of hers who's also super pro-life. Same thing, don't you worry. The church's congregation, we're all going to get together. We're going to give you a baby shower. We're going to get you diapers. We're going to get you supplies. We're going to get you through this. We'll come with you to your doctor's appointments. You're going to be okay. The woman makes her decision based on what she's told. She has the baby. Same woman goes to her Planned Parenthood. What do I do? They're selling a product. That woman is going to get an abortion. They're going to hold her hand and they're going to tell her, don't you worry, honey. These things happen. We're going to take care of it and make it so that it was like it never happened. And you can go back to your normal life. And this isn't going to slow you down. And both of those are really, really nice, cheerful messages that are very reassuring for somebody who's not feeling very self-certain. And women make their decisions based on those conversations. I don't know if there are very many people who will sit and talk with women about, here are your options, here are the pros, here are the cons. What do you feel is best? What do you want? Deep down in your gut and also in your mind, what things really weigh heavily on you? Are you very, very concerned that you won't be able to realistically finish that college path, educational path that you're on? But do you still want the baby deep down? Let's weigh all this together and sift through it. I don't know how many people actually are willing to do that. I don't know how many people are actually capable of doing that. I've seen way too many people who are very, very pro-life and very, very pro-choice and very, very much go team, and they don't really seem to care so much about the needs of the individual. They just care about their side. I think if a person is uncertain and if they can't make up their mind, they should just keep the baby. That seems to me to be the path with the least regret waiting inside of it. I know that there are some women who've had the baby and then they regret not going to college or not completing college or not pursuing that career, whatever. There are women out there who, they had the baby and they do have that regret. But I also think that we live long lives. And if you really, really want to pursue that educational opportunity, you can. There are women who've had unplanned pregnancies, who've had the babies, who then went on to become doctors or, what have you. It can be done. It happens. I understand it doesn't happen very often, but I think that the kind of regret that comes from a missed career opportunity, because there will be many missed career opportunities in a person's life. Some they take and some they just didn't work out. I think the kind of regret that comes with that is not the same as the kind of regret that comes with losing a human being. Should we have access to elective abortions? Well, if it's a human being and we're trying to balance out the rights of the unborn human being with the human being who carries them, and there is, for many people, I don't know what percentage, but it's many, that moment of uncertainty where the only thing it takes to tip them in one direction or the other is just who they happen to talk to. Perhaps it makes sense that elective abortions are being taken away from us. If corporations are marketing abortions to us as a product, and if women are convinced that they should have them because it's a product that's being advertised to them, maybe it's for the best that we shouldn't have them. Maybe that's why they're being slowly eroded. Because we've abused the privilege. Because it isn't just a few of us who found ourselves in dire need of an abortion who went out and got one secretively and a little bit shamefully because something went wrong and it was way more than we could handle. It's something that pops up on the TV when I'm watching with my kids. It's something that is being thrust into the public discourse. #ShoutYourAbortion. It's something that we're all being told we need to accept. And anybody should get one. And anybody can get one. And it's so normal and so natural, which, having had an abortion, I've got to say, it wasn't exactly normal and it wasn't exactly natural, at least not for me. It was a really horrible situation and there was no good way out of it. And that's what an abortion really is. A horrible situation with no good way out. Try to pick the one that's least horrible. Try hard. I look at the culture around abortion and I think this might be why, perhaps. Perhaps that's why laws are sprouting up all over the place where, maybe women shouldn't have abortions and maybe we shouldn't make it legal because these are people that people are throwing away. They're human beings. We're getting rid of them just as casually as the advertisements make it, I'm a free, independent woman and I make my own decisions and I decide what my body needs and I don't really care that I've killed a human being at all. Not one bit. It's not a human being as far as I'm concerned. No wonder it's so easy for people to make laws forbidding abortion. At least the elective abortions. It's a human being. I think that, and then I realized that no matter what, the pro-life lobby would still be making these laws. Even if women said, yes, this is only in extreme cases where things have gone very, very bad, and it's young women who are very impoverished, who just don't have better choices and never ever wanted to have a child, and all that. Even in those extreme, just desperate situations that women get into sometimes, even then they would still be trying to get rid of it. people tell me I'm a horrible person for having my abortion. Every law that I have seen on the books so far has made an exception for women in circumstances like mine to have abortions. The Georgia law made exceptions for women like me. The Louisiana law made exceptions for women like me. They make those exceptions because women like me sometimes need abortions, and I kind of needed one. But that doesn't change the pro-life opinion that I am a horrible person and I shouldn't have had that abortion. And if they think that I just somehow didn't love my baby magically, and I'm a horrible person who just threw a live human being away, who would have had a perfectly happy, wonderful life with magic, because that was the only way that was going to happen. They think that about me, they'll think it about anyone. And they'll prevent, if possible, anyone from having an abortion. And so as nice as it would be, and as much as I do tend to think that this push by the pro-choice side to make abortions as acceptable as possible, as much as I think that that's harming the pro-choice agenda, I think the pro-life side would still be trying to stop them no matter what they did. And so I suppose, after watching all this and trying to keep an open mind as much as possible, that's something to be aware of. If you're very pro-life, do realize that there are pro-choice people out there who are very, very much aware that no matter how much ground they give, you would still be trying to stop them. No matter how much of their own personally held beliefs and values they're willing to sacrifice, you would still be trying to stop them completely. And that's no good. There has to be some middle point, some point of compromise. That's the reason I'm not that's the reason I'm not angry at all about the Georgia law. The Georgia heartbeat law came through and I was like, I mean, that's reasonable. They kept a middle-ish ground. It was a very pro-life leaning middle ground, but it was middle ground enough that I didn't have a complaint. It's not middle ground enough for the pro-life argument. It's not acceptably middle ground enough. The Louisiana law was closer to middle ground enough for the pro-life argument. They're all happy because there's no exemptions for rape, and people are very angry because, how dare I ask that exemptions for rape be made? If you're very pro-life, be aware. I've seen enough pro-life websites and enough pro-life speeches. We can't leave any exceptions to the rule. We have to make sure that every life is held in equal value, blah, 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 blah. You won't give at all. And I think the same can be said for the pro-choice lobby. They won't give any ground either. If you won't give any ground at all, and if you realize that your opponent is completely unwilling to give any ground, it's going to be an eternal stalemate. And I know there are several people in the world who think that that's acceptable because they believe that ultimately their side is going to win. But it's not. It's just an endlessly losing battle for everybody. With the possible exception of people like me who enjoy living in the middle. Anyway, if you like this video, please click like, please subscribe, please share. All of that helps me out, and I will talk to you guys later.